Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April 23rd regular meeting of the Glendale Civil Service Commission. Could we have a roll call, please, Ms. Torres?
Commissioner Devine?
Here.
Commissioner Coleman?
Here.
Commissioner Manukian?
Here.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Here.
Chair Gantis?
Present. What is next, please?
Reading of the minutes.
Okay, we have the minutes of April 9, 2008. What is your pleasure?
Dispense with reading and approve the minutes.
I have some comments.
Oh, good.
Mr. Devine.
Unfortunately, there's quite a few, so please be patient.
Go right in.
Okay.
We do this every week, no problem.
Hopefully we'll be able to put an end to that tonight. Anyway.
Maybe that's the reason.
Come on, let's
Okay.
go.
On page, I guess it's page 1, where it starts out, Commissioner Devine said on pages 2, 5, that's third paragraph down. And in the middle of that paragraph it says, he also pointed out comments attributed to him that he believes were incorrect. And what I actually said was that comments were attributed to both myself and Mr. Abkarian were incorrect, and they were both corrected. So we need to change that to say he also pointed out comments attributed to him and Commissioner Abkarian. Okay, the next are some, on page 3 of 5, some grammar items. This is on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th paragraph down. About the middle of the paragraph where it says the commission is being asked to change that so that instead of having the person specifically licensed as a fire protection engineer, which is difficult to find, the department is requesting for a civil, chemical, or structural engineer who has a license, and it says in a particular field, and it should have said has a license in those fields. So we need to delete in a particular field and change that to those fields. To apply for, and then we need to add the word "and" be given the job title in that same line. And then the last line of that...
It should say actually, and be given the job title. Cut out the word job and.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the last line, we need to delete the word "as a fire protection engineer." What was actually said when representing themselves to the public, because I'd already mentioned the word fire protection engineer above. So just put a period after the word public.
Well, I disagree with that because it says you can't use the title when you're representing yourself to the public as a fire protection engineer. I think they're two different things.
Well, no, the bottom line is that's not what I said. And if, the minutes are going to reflect the intent of what I said, I'd like them to say that.
What was that?
He further said that based on what he read, an individual cannot use the title of fire protection engineer regardless of whether they are a civil, structural, or chemical engineer when representing themselves to the public. And that's what I meant. He cannot use the title fire protection engineer when representing himself to the public, period.
Okay.
Okay, the next paragraph, second line, it says can advertise for, and it should be for a fire protection engineer. We need to add the word a. And then the next line down at the end, it says to write a policy that says, comma, you can give a title. And it should have said, and what I actually did say is, you have been given a title. So change you can give to you have been given a title. Okay, the last concern I have with the minutes, and this is an academic question I'm going to throw out to our attorney, Mr. Braden. The last line before we took the motion, it says Commissioner Manukian made a motion to rescind the previously approved class specification, and it shows that he made the motion and I seconded it. What actually happened there, if you recall, Mr. Braden, when we were discussing the item, we got to the end, and Mr. Manukian did, in fact, make a motion to rescind it. And at that point, Commissioner Abkarian spoke up and said, he said he was correct, that anybody who did not vote for that cannot vote to rescind it. And at that point, you came in, Mr. Braden, and said that that's true, and to get around that, what we need to have done is someone has to make a motion to reconsider. And once it's reconsidered, then anybody can vote on it, yes or no. Do you recall that?
No, what I said was, Commissioner Abkarian said that the person that makes the motion had to vote the affirmative. And I said, you're thinking of a motion to reconsider. What we're doing is a motion to rescind, which is entirely different. And that's why we did the motion to rescind.
Okay. I played the tape back, and that's not what was said. Bottom line is, I originally voted on that item in the negative. I did not vote to approve it. And yet, after Mr. Manukian made the motion to rescind, I seconded that motion. Was that a legal action?
Yes.
Well, it was at that time. Now, if you want to withdraw your second to that.
Oh, no. All I want to do is make sure that what we've done here is legal.
It was.
And based on what you said when I took off the tape, was that we had to make a motion to reconsider, and once that was done, then anybody could vote on the motion to rescind. And that's not the way it came off. So by my seconding a motion to rescind, and I voted against it originally, is that okay? Do you
Yes.
have a problem with that?
Yes.
Okay. Then
That it?
that's it.
Okay?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr.
Just
Braden.
one other recommendation, and as you know, I can't do anything with the minutes, but on page 2, under number 7, the second paragraph, it ends with status. That should be statutes.
You're talking about, it's misspelled, S-T-A-T-U-T-E-S, right?
Yes.
Add a T. I've corrected all of these, Sandra, so I will give them to you. Okay, anything else?
Approve with the changes.
Second. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine? Commissioner Coleman?
Stay.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gantis?
Yes, what is next, please?
Oral communications.
I have no cards. Oral communications is a discussion limited to those items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. The commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. Does anybody wish to address the Civil Service Commission on oral communications? No one appearing. We will close oral communications. What is next, please?
Eligible list established.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the eligible lists established are presented for your review. These are the lists that have been established since our last meeting. We have 3 listed there, 2 promotional, 1 open. Again, as is typical, we list the total number of applications received along with the total number who ultimately made it on the eligibility list for these positions. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or have staff do so.
Any questions? None appearing. What is next?
Revised class specification series for approval, community service officer, police records.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this item is a revision of a class specification for the Community Service Officer Series. This is a more commonly known as the CSO position. This is a commonly used job classification within the police department. It is a non-sworn classification that handles a variety of duties in assistance to our sworn police officers. They're quite visible. They handle assignments to the custody bureau and the jail, parking enforcement, crime prevention, cops unit. What this amendment to the specification seeks to do is to add the function of police records to be one of the assignments of community service officer. There are a variety of reasons for doing so, one of which is, in my view, a little bit of equity in these employees are treated. But largely, we've had a great deal of difficulty recruiting and retaining employees in the current job of police records specialist. It is paid lower than the CSO position, and essentially what it's become is almost a training ground to move on to other jobs, either within the city or certainly within the police department. The Police Records Bureau is a 24/7 operation. It's a very important function for the city, and the job in and of itself has become a lot more challenging in recent years, with a lot of new statutes and laws that govern the release of this type of information. So what we are recommending here is that the specification be revised to allow the department to essentially assign employees who work in the Records Bureau to the CSO job classification. If there's any questions you have, I'd be happy to answer them. Staff is here. Russ Kwan from HR and the police department is here, as is Captain Palmer and Betty Piquet, Police Records Administrator.
Commissioner Carrion.
I don't understand. Are you adding the ability to communicate effectively in English, both orally and writing? Wasn't that something that should have been? Is that something that you need to? Wasn't that supposed to be there in the first place? In the first page, it says ability to communicate effectively in English, both orally and
Yes.
writing. Is this something that's just being added now?
Apparently so. That's something that is on most of our job specifications, and
That is not, or now is?
it is. So surprised to find that it was not on there, but certainly
I would hope
appropriate.
that someone who's doing a community service officer could communicate in English orally in the fire future.
Let me understand this now. We are effectively getting rid of a position, of a class, the Records Bureau, whatever.
Correct. The
And that's
classification is currently called Police Records Specialist,
Okay.
and that will be going away
it's
pending this approval.
Morphed into the Community Service Officer.
Correct.
Are we reducing the number of positions, or are we going to make the Police Records Specialist, adding that number as Community Service Officer so we can spend more of the city money?
No, we're at the same number of budgeted positions. The existing staff will just be transitioned over to CSOs.
At a higher salary?
It's a higher salary. So
Okay, so we're spending more of the city's money.
we are spending more than the city. Well, the Civil Service Commission is not.
No,
spending
we're
more
not.
than But
We don't approve that budgeting, that's the city council.
that's correct. And then
All we're doing is creating the class so that you can ask the city council.
Correct.
Mr. Devine.
Speaking city council, I may have missed the point, but I believe Captain Palmer made a presentation last night regarding this item. Am I correct on that or incorrect? And if so, I'm not sure what the difference between what you were asking the council for and what you're asking the commission for is.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission and city staff, obviously this is a somewhat different process. I think we're here to approve class specs for this position.
Not the budgeting.
Last night we were approving in front of the city council changes to MOU language specifically. And just to, if I may, just a couple of quick comments to echo what Mr. Doyle has said. I want to make first I want to say that, our police records function is an essential police function. And there's a lot of ways to define essential. The way I define essential is that when you come in on a major holiday like Christmas or Thanksgiving, which portions of our department are staffed, you'll find Records Bureau staffing 365 days, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We've been operating this bureau with 14 budgeted positions, but 10 positions currently. We've experienced significant attrition. We bring people in, and as you well know, it's very expensive to background and to test, so there's significant city resources. Almost, I won't say as soon as we get them up and trained, sometimes even before we get them trained, they look around the city, they see similar jobs, either with less complexity or the same complexity, where they work Monday through Friday, don't have to work holidays, rotating shifts, and they leave. And so we've been chronically understaffed resulting in significant overtime expenditures. We feel that although this class change monetarily will initially cost a little bit more, we feel that the costs associated with recruiting, training, hiring, backgrounding, and overtime, I really believe it's going to be very close to a wash here. So by approving this spec, it'll also give us the ability to move people throughout the department in the CSO general classification and decompartmentalize many of the sections in the department we have. So I see this, and I hope you do too, as a very positive change for the department, opening additional opportunity for our professional staff, which has certainly been a focus of mine as a police captain for administrative services.
Move to approve.
Wait, just a second. How does the community service officer, because the job itself, it lends somebody to be more willing to work the 24/7, 365 days a year? Is that?
The issue of our ability to expand or improve our candidate pool is one that quite frankly, I cannot sit here and say that this absolutely will support this. We certainly hope by having a higher pay range that we will attract a more qualified candidate. And the reason this came about was during our last testing process, we started out with a candidate pool of approximately 50 people. We ended up, after our testing process, with a list of 3. Of those 3 candidates, because remember, the police department puts everybody through a full background, just like they do a sworn police officer. We had 0 candidates at the end of that testing process. So we realized that, combined with our attrition, combined with the fact that the police record specialist position was predicated on our old OSA 2, and quite frankly, the complexity because of statutory requirements, Public Records Act, databases, the complexity of the job has changed over 20 years, yet the classification really hasn't. So it's really a 3-pronged approach. Help us in recruiting, retention, and also to compensate the individuals working this very challenging position in a manner that's consistent with other jobs here in the city.
Thank you. Any other questions? We have a motion. We have a motion and a second already. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gantis?
Yes. What is next?
Job bulletin for approval, fire engineer.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a job bulletin for your approval for the position of fire engineer. As this is a sworn safety promotional type position, this was required to be reviewed by the Civil Service Commission. Also, another reason we're bringing this to you is because we're looking at a change in the bulletin, or a deviation from the existing class spec relative to some of the classes that are required to take for this position. Whenever, I believe the Commission is aware that whenever we propose to deviate in any way from the existing class specification with a special bulletin, we would bring that to you for your approval. In this case, the recommendation by the fire department is to change the class requirement. Currently, there are 8 classes, most having to do with driving, that are required to be completed prior to the application for this position. And what we're proposing to do is make 5 of them required, and the remaining classes would be required to be completed sometime during the probationary period. This is, again, being done because we're concerned with the number of potential candidates. I think a few years back when the fire department put forth a lot of the changes in the class specifications for fire captain, fire engineer, I'd say we were a bit ambitious as far as the number of classes and educational programs that we're placing on this position, that are on these positions. And we're finding that it's been somewhat difficult for all of the firefighters and people interested in these promotions to have the opportunity to take these classes in time for the promotional opportunities to come. So we are slowly revisiting all of those requirements. Probably in a few months we'll have some changes to the specifications, but for the purpose of this recruitment, of which we have openings now for fire engineer, this bulletin is being presented for your approval. I have Ms. Hunanian from my staff is here, as is Deputy Chief Steve Howard, and Battalion Chief Bob Doyle, in case you have any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Coleman? Oh, it looked like you had a question. What is your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Chair Gankus?
Yes, what's next?
Report on advertising budget expenditure, January 2008 to March 2008.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is your quarterly advertising expenditure report. This report it covers the period of time between January 1st, 2008 and March 31st, 2008. The amount of money spent is listed on the report. In this quarter, a very small amount, $2,899. We do anticipate in the last quarter of this year's fiscal year to spend a significant more, as there are several projects currently in the loop relative to our advertising. And the report covers some of the things that are going on. We currently have an advertising campaign through a mobile billboard company, which will be running our graphic with our job opportunities throughout the city. This is an outfit that Commissioner Abkarian hooked us up with. They're offering some free advertising, and handed out a graphic of the advertisement for your review. Another thing in the works is a short production by producer-director Vi Babayan, who is working on a short career targeting local Armenians for careers in the police department. The filming is going to begin April 28th. He's done a lot of background work and met with many people from the police department on that. We've also attended the Cesar Chavez commemorative event over the past month in the Glendale Community College Job Fair. Additionally, a commercial is being prepared focusing on careers in fire service. Once again, Commissioner Abkarian hooked us up with a producer who will help us in that area, and he's offered some service, free service on that. We're also beginning to spend money on more media in the cable TV market with some of the advertisements that we have out there. So, along with those things, that's more or less a status of what we're working on. It was just over a month ago that we last presented our previous quarterly report, which had a pretty detailed tracking of our applicants, where they're seeing our advertisements and compared against those who are actually hired. That report is somewhat detailed. We're not presenting those on a quarterly basis, but we think every 6 months would give us a sufficient number of statistics to really look to see, where we should be focusing our efforts. So, with that, as you can see, a lot going on. Ms. Kopian is to be commended for all her work on this, and she is here in case you have questions for us.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? No actions required. What is next?
Report on meeting minutes preparation.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, this is an item being brought back from our last meeting, having to do with the manner in which we handle our minutes for these meetings. At our last meeting, there was some debate and discussion on whether or not to start changing the format of our minutes from the current narrative format to the action minute format. It was decided to bring the item back. There was some difference of opinion amongst the commissioners on that. I think that it would be good to have Commissioner Coleman weigh in on the matter as well. Also, the Commission had asked to provide a few examples of the whole action minute concept, how it works and what it looks like, and that is provided in your packet as attachments B, C, and D. Additionally, attachment A is the staff report from last week's meeting. At this point, I'll turn it over to the Commission if you want to have further discussion on this. If you have any questions, we can go over them.
Mr. Commissioner Devine?
Well, before I start, I'd like to, one of the things that we wanted to do was have everybody take a look at what action minutes are, and they included those in our sample. And Commissioner Abkarian indicated that he used the minutes and he used the PDF format to look for things in the minutes. So I think before I indicate my feelings on this matter, I need to find out from Mr. Abkarian, number one, how many times a year do you actually have to go to the minutes? And number two,
Mr. Devine, if it's one time, would that make a difference, or is it 10 times? Does that make any difference at all? I need to find something. What difference does it make if I do it once a year, if I do it 10 times a day? I mean...
Could we, excuse me, all questions, let's have them go through the chair, please.
Okay. All right, then my next question would be, does it matter to you if the minutes may not accurately reflect what you say in them when you look up something?
Mr. F. Karen, did you want to respond to that?
Mr. Devine, with all due respect to you, this is not a... I feel like I'm in a deposition somewhere.
Inquisition.
Inquisition. But no, I would like the minutes to reflect what we said. I think that they have accurately reflected what we have said. And to answer your first question, probably I do it maybe once every 2 months or so. So maybe once every 3 months. I don't know if that makes any difference.
Okay. I just wanted to get your input on that to find out where he comes from. Mr. Gaddis, could you ask Mr. Abkarian?
Will you ask him? I mean, just we're gonna. I'm gonna filter the questions.
Okay. In looking at the action minutes that they supplied to you, do you feel that they provide enough information? And also, I did go on the website, and you can access all the information in those action minutes on the PDF file the same way. I went to the council minutes they provided. I plugged in some of the councilmen's names, and they popped up just like whether they were action minutes or they were narrative minutes. And it indicated, they highlighted where they spoke during the minutes and what they said. The only thing that wasn't there was, instead of having a long narrative of what the councilman may have said, it contained the action that the councilman took. And that was the only difference. But you still have the ability to use your PDF search and, determine how many times you spoke and basically what you said. So I'm asking if you had a chance to look at that and whether that would make a difference, whether they were narrative minutes or action minutes, knowing you can use a PDF file in either case.
Chair Gantis, may I speak?
Just a second. This isn't an inquisition.
No,
Obviously,
I'm more than welcome to. I'm more than happy to answer, Chair, if you would like.
Go right ahead, but let's kind of keep this somewhat compact on this. We've gone over this before, obviously. Commissioner Coleman, did you happen to look at the discussion on the...
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're up to date on all this.
And-
Okay.
and-
You're not your turn to speak, though. Commissioner Abkarian.
The manner in which we have our minutes today and the detailed information that is right in your fingertips is something that I like to have. And if the commission decides that that's not the way to go, then I will go with that. It's not a major issue. I do enjoy the fact that I can go to the minutes, I can type in what I want, I can go right to the section that I want, and it tells me what I need without me having to go to the actual DVD or CD and try to find that particular section. It's right there, and I can take a look at it. So if that answers your question, in reference to some of the minutes, I really didn't like the minutes from
Planning Commission.
From Planning Commission. I think that gives nothing. Design review the same way. I think design review minutes are just very poor. I mean, it says nothing whatsoever to help anyone. And not to belittle them in any way, shape, or form. Please don't get me wrong. I'm sure they have a lot to do, and they have 3 departments. Maybe because I'm used to what we've done, but I like the type of minutes that we have. I know it's time consuming, but I think it's very helpful in the long run.
Okay. We have other people, so let's. I mean, Mr. Coleman, I would like to hear Mr. Coleman's input because that's what we put this over for.
Well, I mean, just up front, I don't see any need whatsoever for a change, and I think that every commissioner that's sitting up here goes over the minutes. If what we have said is incorrectly laid out in the minutes, then it's the second thing on the agenda every meeting. We have the right to correct it on the record. And so I'm in favor of keeping the long form with regards to the minutes.
Okay. Now, Commissioner Devine.
Okay. Based on that, and I can count votes very easily, I can see where we're going to keep what we have. However, I do want to mention that I started this concern based on my concern for the time that took the staff to do the minutes. It takes many hours for the secretary to prepare these minutes, so my initial concern was to see if we could find a way to save the time there. However, based on the last 2 sets of minutes I've read, that concern has transcended to my concern, and actually Commissioner Manukian brought up or asked a good question after I went through the minutes last time. It was words to the effect that, don't you have anything better to do? And that was a very, very good question.
No, I said you better get new hobbies. That's what I said.
You said that also. But the point is that I do have better things to do than go through and find that what I said is not true. And this is no reflection on the staff, on our secretary. I think she does a fantastic job. My hat is off to her for being able to do as well as she does. But she's only human, and what she is doing is not transcribing what we say as in a transcript. She's trying to understand, interpret, and paraphrase what we're saying. And at least in the cases where I've spoken, that has not come out accurately. And so based on that, understanding where we're going to be going on this vote, I'm going to request that from now on, no matter what minutes we do, that you do not quote me other than what action I take, that you do not put any narrative in on any of the comments I make, so that I don't have to spend the time going through and correcting my portion of it.
I'm not understanding what the request is. Now you're making her job 20 times harder. So why don't you...
I'm making it easier. I'm saying that when she comes to doing the minutes, she does not have to prepare a narrative for me.
You know what? I'm going to stop the conversation because you can't make a request that minutes be tailored to what you want.
No,
minutes are minutes. They're either going to reflect what everybody says, or they're going to be an action only. That's it. There's no, this isn't where she can just not put, she has to reflect what's in the meeting. If it's an action only, then that's all it is. If we vote that it be everything in there, she has an obligation to put everything in there. So that's not an Mr. Braden, it seems to me that would not be an appropriate way to do the minutes at all, to just have some in and some out.
You're correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, I have nothing further to say.
Mr. Devine, can I say
Yes, please, Mr.
Devine, I hope you don't, I understand your frustration and the fact that you would like to get this, but it's not, if we vote to actually have the minutes the way they are, we can't delete the sections where you speak.
We've already addressed that issue.
All right.
That is not even being
I just wanted him to understand that I hope we could, but it's not even legally possible to edit him out.
Cannot.
Okay. Can I ask Mr. Braden a quick question?
Yes.
That being the case, is there any law or rule against the commissioner either abstaining or voting no on the minutes every time?
Nothing against that.
Nothing against that. Is there any further discussion on this issue? Mr. Doyle, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something? Just Mr. Doyle first.
I forgot 10 minutes ago what I was going to say. If it's going to be a chairman, at least pay attention if we're trying to talk. 'Cause I totally forgot what the point was.
I am
now.
sorry, I was trying to be
It's okay.
as you saw, I was trying to make sure I had this issue taken care of. But think about it while we're talking to Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to convey, I try to remain neutral on these issues as your staff, and certainly want to go whatever way you want on this. I do want to say I greatly appreciate Commissioner Devine's recommendation here, because it would save us tremendous amount of staff time in the preparation of these minutes, the review of the minutes, and all that. And I too have the secondary concern relative to the accuracy of those minutes. What we're asking Sandra to do is very difficult. It's to take an entire meeting and summarize it into a few paragraphs, and that's not an easy thing to do. And I frankly am going to be concerned if meeting after meeting we're going to have this constant correction of, I didn't say that, or that's not what I meant, or you got that wrong. It just it wouldn't reflect well on I don't know, the way our department operates. And so I do I appreciate where the majority of the commission is coming from, but I have to say that I would strongly have a preference for the action minutes format if my views hold any weight here. So, thank you.
One change that might make some sense. I know we don't often get them. We didn't get it tonight, but when we do, sometimes. Last time we had 6 people speaking on oral communications. I don't necessarily think that we need to go into the oral communications portion of it. We can take the action. Does anybody disagree that we can take the action approach on the oral communications? Is that acceptable to everybody? I don't hear anybody saying no on that, so that'll get rid of some of it. And so my feeling, I understand that, and I share Mr. Doyle's concern about the time necessary to go over minutes. My concern is that we're running into a situation where we have one person saying tomato and one person saying tomato with the same thing. And my specific concern is Mr. Devine's point to Mr. Braden about what he said concerning rescind and reconsider. And I specifically recall that because I know the rules regarding that, and Mr. Braden was absolutely correct. And that leads me to be concerned that we've got one person hearing something, and maybe that isn't what's in there. I've chosen not to go back because most of them aren't worth the change. But minutes are minutes, and if the word "the" isn't in there, sometimes it's not going to change the impact of the minutes. So I think we need to be a little bit more, if we're going to go in the detailed portion, we need to be a little more. Take the bigger parts of what's there, not the smaller parts. And I think that's where Mr. Doyle is going. And if we're going to continue to do that, then I may ask, either as a commissioner or as the chairman, to have this put back on the agenda, because I don't think it's fair. I agree with Mr. Doyle. It's not fair to the staff to go back. If she hears something, because I know that Sandra, when she prepares the minutes, she prepares them from the tape recording. Am I not correct? Is it the tape recording, or do you actually look at the video streaming?
Recorder. The
recorder. So, again, if there might be some words missed, but be that as it may, I can count also. I understand. I kind of like the way our minutes are now too, but not if they're going to take up 20 minutes of a meeting every day to make corrections. So, what is your pleasure, gentlemen? I guess, do we have an action on this, Mr. Doyle?
If we want to change it, do you have an action?
We do.
Okay. Then we need to have a motion to, there would be a motion to change the minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to change the minutes. Is there such a motion?
I'll move to change the minutes.
Is there a second to that? Is there a second to that? Is there a second to that motion? Having said it 3 times, there's no second. The motion dies for lack of a second. What is next?
Agenda forecast.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this item reflects the items that are appearing at the next few meetings. At our next meeting, we will have a report on methodology for selection of outside hearing officers and a brief report on process for canceling Civil Service Commission meetings. With that, if there's anything else you wish to add or questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
We're going to have the change of command on the end of the first meeting or the second meeting in May?
I believe it will be the second meeting.
Okay, so that'll be on 5/28. You'll add that to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, if
Yes.
it's okay, I'd like to see where we did it last year before answering that question.
Okay. Whatever we did last year, we'll do this year.
Okay.
Anything else to go on the agenda? Do we have any hearings that you want to reflect? Do we have a short meeting on? Are there any hearings scheduled for?
I don't have the calendar. We have some hearings in June.
If we
but,
do, could we just double check that to see that we don't have hearings, and let's put that on the next agenda forecast. What is next?
First,
Oh, sorry.
we the hearing panel I'm on, we start June 5th. That's the
I think
first.
there is, I believe there's an actual hearing on June 11th. But we'll take a look at it. If it is, then we'll keep it close.
Okay, well then we'll add, I'm just telling them then, put on here, short meeting, hearing, so we know that for any future agenda forecasts. Anything further on agenda forecast? What is next?
Reports and information.
Are there any reports or information? None appearing. What is next?
Civil Service Commission and staff comments.
Are there any Civil Service? Commissioner Abkarian.
I just wanted to say, Commissioner Devine, I understand, would like to have a short item on those minutes, but I want to say Sandra has just done an outstanding job, without any doubt, in the years that I've been here and she's been here, in reference to not only minutes, but the service that she's given to the Civil Service Commission, and in no way, shape, or form do I want our commission altogether, or anyone out in the audience or on TV, to believe that that Sandra gives us anything but just outstanding service. So maybe we discuss some issues having to do with minutes, maybe we don't agree or disagree with some wordings, but what she does for this commission is just outstanding, and I expect nothing less from her. She's set such a high standard that we all just have gotten used to it. Sometimes once in a while when there's a replacement we manage, but Sandra just does a great job, and Sandra, I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
As the senior member on this panel, and having gone through, three people here, 4 people that have done this, far and away, Sandra's the best. She has been incredible, and Matt and I know that we've gone through some not incredible people, so we're very appreciative, Sandra, that you've done that.
Thank you.
What is next? Any other Civil Service Commission and/or staff comments? Yes, Commissioner Devine.
As I mentioned when I spoke earlier, I also agree with Mr. Abkarian's comments, and I said I admire and thank Sandra for the work she does, and I have no problem with that. What I did want to say, though, I just need a clarification. We had 2 things we considered today, one the job specs and one a bulletin, and I'm wondering, does this commission need to look at or need to consider the dollar amounts involved in terms of salaries or whatnot when we look at these bulletins and specs? Chairman Gaddis had mentioned on one of the items, he asked about whether we were going to get more people or it was going to cost more, words to that effect. And so my question is, do we need to be concerned about the cost or salaries or anything like that when we consider these bulletins and specs?
Commissioner Vine, that largely would fall outside of the purview of this commission. Anything relative to salaries, benefits, is not within your purview. It's certainly something you can ask about, and we'd be happy to provide that information, but it's not a function of the Civil Service Commission by nature.
Thank you.
Purpose I always do is that I'm not a believer in expanding grossly the public service. So I keep an eye on that and it determines in my mind whether or not we create positions, which is our job to do, which is why I asked the question. But you're correct, and there are many people that think that we have something to do with the salaries, the raises of the salaries. I think they call them the Millionaires Club or the $100,000 club of those that are getting paid, which I think, by the way, they deserve being paid. We have absolutely nothing to do with that. That's correct. Any other Civil Service Commission and/or staff
I
comments?
think it's Mr. Doyle's salary that just throws
Yeah,
everything
that's
off.
that's what puts everybody else into. Yeah. And what I think there was one of the articles said that they sit around all day waiting for the city council meeting and do nothing. I thought that was
Okay.
too.
All right.
Any other Civil Service
Waving this guy
Commission and/or staff comments? We have no closed session. I will accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.